With your screenwriting van, do you try to be original, or do you try to give the audience what you think they would want?
I think I try to come up with the original concept, and you want to start out with that, and because that's sort of what drives you. I know you're supposed to, I know they say, hey, think about what the audience is, or think about your audience, what's your genre, who's watching this, who's doing that. But I think you start writing the story that motivates you, and what gets you through, because you're gonna have to live with this for a long time in terms of like producing it, or in terms of like writing it, and then if you go on to try to get it produced and made, it has to be something that you're proud of, or that you want to go through that journey with. So if that idea is an original idea for you, and at least it's for me, I start with that. So all the scripts that I have written is basically from original thoughts, and I don't even think about the budget and stuff like that. Maybe because the stories I write just tend to fall in the same thing, but it's not super high concept. It's not out in space. It's not this. It's just like grounded in what's happening here in humanity. But when I start out something, I come at from a original perspective.
Do you think you could be okay with being a writer for hire, or something where it may not be your style, it may be too hand-holding of a story, but you're being sort of like, okay, paid to do it, even though it might not be something you would want to watch? Would you have trouble with that?
This is like me going through, like, if I'm actually writing, sticking to the themes. My original thought of all this was to have a sustainable career. So to answer that, yeah, I would do it. I'm not a young buck coming out of 25 years old and having the luxury of a lot of time and doing this, but I think the more you can do anything, the better you get at it, you always hear, now I sort of understand why people might complain why actors take certain roles and things like that. Everyone can't be Daniel Day-Lewis and do these. Maybe you just want to be a role that's goofy and fun. Maybe I want to test my chops on something different. I'm not, we talked about athletes and stuff. You want to come back to each season with new things that you learn. Everything, whether if I ever get a chance at a studio world writing something that's, that I'm going to learn something from that. You could always take that back, and then I could always do it as a hobby, my own stuff later, so that kind of stuff. So things like that. So I'm not opposed to that, if that is an opportunity, or, I'm not one of those, I'm going to be an auteur and everything that's going to happen. I'm just trying to take it one film at a time. If it happens, there'll be, I think that would be a good problem to have, to make that decision.
I always wonder about like actors who get these commercials where they become these spokespersons for like well over a decade.
Yeah.
And how do they feel about that? I mean, if it provides a nice lifestyle for someone and they feel a sense of satisfaction, maybe they weren't the leading role on General Hospital or something, but but then some people go to the sellout term, and I think most of us would probably, they'd go with the steady paycheck.
Yeah. If we think percentage-wise of things, and you want, how many, like you said, how many of us can be Paul Thomas Anderson or Quentin Tarantino? How many people are even behind the scenes doing stuff that we don't even know about, that no one does, that has to punch up a script or do this or do whatever you have. But if you're in it, it beats other things. So, like, definitely it would be something. It's not like something you always want to do, and like you want to build leverage, but also you want to be working.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
How has All Roads to Perla changed your writing process?
I think since it's one of the earlier ones, and and seeing how it could be developed into it. I think now I'm trying to get tighter in my storytelling. You're trying to, if again, back to an athlete, analogy, an athlete, what can you work on? I think it's for writing for film, I need to be tighter for 90 minutes. For Hours to Perla and other things, I think there's a world where you can have it like a episodic limited series, so you could dive into the characters more, and I think that's what I've kind of learned. If I have a situation or an idea that involves tons of characters, I probably would start out writing it as a pilot. Now, if I have like a pretty great idea that I could tell within a film space of like 90 minutes, I'll switch to film. I think that's how writing that All Roads to Pearl has helped me kind of divide the two areas. I believe, just to keep them separate, because each one has its own sort of format and expectations.
When you say tighter, do you mean that you feel sometimes the story will meander and you're trying to keep it on course?
Yeah. I think for me personally, I think because I write very visually, I think it's too flowery, and I write as a writer-director, so there's a lot of things I'm putting on the page that I don't need to, because I know I'm going to direct it, but I like to write it and create it for folks. But if I was purely writing as a writer, I get a lot tighter, because I want to experience that in terms of like not to be, to explain things and not have as much, camera direction or setting things up and flowery. I want it tighter so I could turn the page. That would be my goal now. Before, I think the goal before was writing something with heart. Now I think maintaining that, but condensed. Yeah.